Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Well, it's your old pal Jake, and I'm doing a stream a little bit earlier because some news is going to come out later today that I think is going to make me hoppin' mad. And right now I'm in a great mood, and I want to share that with you. Also, because I've seen some content lately that I had some thoughts on, wanted to tell you what you can do about it. And I wanted to share some great creators. We have the return of Beau of the Fifth Column. I know I've been going heavy with his content lately, but man, guy's on a roll. Fantastic to see. He does have he touches on what you can do with the upcoming fight against the GOP to protect Social Security. It ain't a joke, folks. They are coming for it. I can't fathom what how these folks look at themselves in the mirror. Fortunately, there are things we can do to prepare. We also have Jordan Peterson at risk of losing his license to practice therapy on account of his monstrous behavior. Kudos to Canada for having its act together and knowing when it is time to pull a person's license, although Shark 30 offers some insight that I have to say I agree with in terms of when that should have occurred. And guess who's back? Back again. The shadiest president, Trump, is ranting on Truth Social. Oh my gosh, Truth Social, and this time throwing John Bolton under the bus. Let him fight. I love it. But of course, at the same time, being an utterly terrifying individual and sharing Q propaganda. Wild. Let us get in to the day's news. So Jordan Peterson has been using his platform to be an anti-trans activist. And he wraps it in pseudoscience, and he steeples his fingers when he talks about it, and then just spreads hate. Have a look at this article by the New York Post. Controversial Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson has launched a legal challenge against the College of Psychologists of Ontario after he said the governing body threatened to pull his practicing license if he doesn't complete social media re-education for comments he made on Twitter and the Joe Rogan podcast. Peterson, 60, filed an application for judicial review with the Ontario Divisional Court, the Toronto Sun reported Wednesday, as the clinical psychologist has said he will refuse to comply with the regulatory body's demands. Okay, what are these unreasonable demands they're making of Jordan Peterson? Well, it sort of centers around the fact that he's using psychology from the early 20th century, and we're a quarter of the way into 2023. We're in the 21st century now, folks. Here is the continuation that explains that. The CPO, which oversees practicing psychologists in Ontario in order to protect patients from professional misconduct, like, for example, your therapist encouraging conversion therapy, again in 2023, ordered Peterson to complete a mandatory specified continuing education or remedial program to review, reflect, and ameliorate his professional in-public statements, according to a lengthy list of requirements from the college that Peterson shared on Twitter. He must meet with a psychologist for coaching classes. Literally, this guy's got to go back to school, which he must pay for until a final report is issued by the coach that shows their concerns have been properly ameliorated. The CPO reached its decision on November 22nd following an investigation. Okay, good. Good. I like that it has the clause until the coach has been, what does it say? Until a final report is issued by the coach that shows their concerns have been properly ameliorated. Yeah. You need to make absolutely certain that this guy understands what modern science says if he is going to be licensed to practice modern science. He wants to do phrenology or whatever nonsense they did back when, I don't know, they thought you had to drill a hole in the skull to get rid of demons. Nobody is in danger of going to him for advice, but the fact that he's allowed to call himself a licensed therapist, that's insane. It's absolutely insane. Let me go to this last piece here because Peterson did respond. If it becomes necessary for him to attend classes, he pledged to make all of the details of what they're teaching public. Good. Good. I would like his embarrassment to spread. In June, Twitter suspended Peterson for a post about transgender actor Elliot Page that broke the platform's rules against hateful conduct. Remember when pride was a sin? I just want to give you a sense of who this guy is. And Ellen Page just had her breasts removed by a criminal physician, Peterson tweeted. That's what this guy said. He called a doctor a criminal for performing a perfectly legal operation against a consenting adult who asked them to. Well, let me take you straight to what Shark30 said about this cat. Because he wants him to go a step farther. And you know what? He wants the licensing association to go a step farther. And I gotta say, I agree with him here. Here is Shark30 talking about it.
This man is a licensed therapist, okay? He can get patients. He can, refer people out if he ever decided to be a therapist again, which I don't know if he does because he's making way more money at the Daily Wire than he ever was actually helping people with their lives while being a therapist, right? But, if you just want to keep your license, just go through it's just a remedial course. It's literally just a remedial course. If you're not acting like a professional, if you're making the entire association look bad, yes, they'll cut you.
Now, for the record, this is all, all of it's hypothetical. This guy's not going to go practice therapy. He's making way too much money scamming gullible right-wingers to go back to actually trying to help anybody. It's more about whether or not he gets to say he's a licensed therapist. He should not be able to, saying what he is currently saying.
That's how it works. I'm not going to lie to you. If Jordan Peterson guys were running around like a part of your system, I'm not sure if I could trust your average Ontario therapist. If I'm going to be honest with you, if Jordan Peterson is your average Ontario therapist, I don't want to I don't want to be one of your patients. If I'm gonna be completely real with you, partner, I don't.
So I take it back. As he points out, I guess it is more about just it's about more than just Jordan Peterson as well. It's also about whether or not it means anything to be a licensed therapist in Ontario. In Canada. It's the Ontario, yada, yada, yada. But whether or not it means anything to hold that license in Canada. Because if that clown is out there saying this nonsense this hate speech about trans folks. And he's allowed the government signs off and says, yeah, he can be a therapist. Well, how much faith does that give you in the non-famous therapists in that country? Very little. Very little. One would hope. And God help you if you're a Canadian kid who's trans and you're trying to work some things out. Because right now, that guy is supposedly a representative of the quality of therapy available.
I do not. Anyways, wait.
Right. And more than that, and here's another perverse element of this. So many legislatures around the world now have banned so-called conversion therapy. Mm-hmm. Conversion therapy. Mm-hmm. And to me, this has been a catastrophe. Now, I know that there was a small...
So this person could possibly be the therapist to like a closeted queer person or an out of the closet queer person. And this is somebody who genuinely, unironically believes that banning conversion therapy is a catastrophe and it's bad for society. Do you really think that this person should be like a licensed therapist? I personally don't believe so. Or at least go through like courses again so they could like check you out, because this is crazy. Let me see if I can find this really quick, because it was in here where he had his insane opinions.
Isn't that people be treated humanely or be treated decently.
At two real champions of human rights up there. I have a list of things I hate about Ben Shapiro that's about as long as my leg, but I'm going to keep it on Jordan Peterson for this one.
The insistence is that your vision of yourself be reflected by me in defiance of baseline reality and in order to redefine how society as a whole works.
Well, a lot of it's murky thinking. You know, if someone asked me, do I believe that there are gender fluid people? I would say yes. And I would say...
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, never mind. Case closed. Looks like he gets it. There are, in fact, gender fluid people. Obviously, he's going to ruin them.
Ally.
A young man who's gender fluid, I know what he's like temperamentally. He's high in agreeableness. He's high in neuroticism. So he has a feminine temperament. He's more interested in people than things. And he's extremely high in openness. And so his temperament...
What the fuck does that mean? He has a... Oh, yeah. Yeah, where he's like redemption arc? No, he says that a gender fluid, for one, he's saying he, and two, he's saying he has a woman brain, and that's why he's air quote gender fluid, because he has woman brain.
Is fluid. He's creative, and so he's one thing one day and one thing the next, and his fundamental temperament is tilted towards the feminine, but that doesn't mean he's not a man.
Exactly.
So that's...
So remember redemption arc over. As soon as it begins, it ends. Do gender fluid people exist? Yes, they have woman brain, but they are man. Person could he's just like completely out of lockstep with just like the medical association and the world's doctors' understanding of queer people. Period. He's just does not understand, which makes him bad at being a therapist. So I just don't believe that he should be a therapist. If you can't do it, you're just... It's not even that you don't know as much to be able to help them as well as possible. You're just you would actively harm them. And honestly, like if I was a part of the Ontario psychologist fucking bullshit or whatever the shit is, I would have just like just ripped his license degree up. Honestly, for me, the fact that they even gave him the option to plead his case is honestly like more than I think he deserves, but they're giving it to him anyways. Peterson also claimed to the National Post that he was targeted for supporting the Canadian opposition leader Pierre Poilievre's.
That guy is, I don't want to say every bit as bad as Trump, because Trump was worse even than I had imagined. But that guy is garbage. I heard a little bit more about him on the True North Eager Beaver podcast. It's a Canadian podcast I enjoy. Just absolute hot garbage.
Criticisms of the COVID-19 lockdowns. Yikes. Yikes. Professional bodies are supposed to ensure that practitioners are content.
Side note, what is it with right-wingers and being pro-disease? It's so bizarre. When COVID came out, I did say out loud, unfortunately I wasn't on YouTube at the time, but I did say out loud to my colleagues that the right wing would find a way to get on the side of COVID. And God help me if that wasn't darkly correct.
And not enforce political orthodoxies or languages police outside the office, the board wrote in a scathing column. Yo, bodied again. I practiced for 20 years without being investigated. Yes, that's a problem. That's an issue. And honestly, that's bad. That's bad. That speaks poorly on the Ontario department, if I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Yes, it does. Yes, it certainly does. I'm going to go back to my familiar corner. It does speak bad of the licensing association over there. And he brought up a great point. Re-education. What are we attempting to re-educate this guy on? Basic human decency? Are we going to pretend like he just didn't know? He just didn't know that conversion therapy is nonsense. It is hurtful. He came out against a law that simply includes gender amongst the protected classes in Canada. That's it. He came out for conversion therapy in 2020, whenever the hell. He's still for it in 2023. He should not there shouldn't be a debate about this. License pulled. That ought to be what happens. They are instead taking the route of pulling his license if he doesn't take X and Y class. It sounds like he won't. He's instead... actually, I take that back. It sounds like he will, but only if he loses in court. So here's hoping Canadian courts are less corrupt than U.S. courts, and he does, in fact, lose, and badly. What can you do about it? Nothing. It's not our place to. Our being anybody outside of the courtroom. But I did include a link in the description. If you see behavior like Peterson displayed from a therapist you're seeing, there is a guide to how to deal with it, how you can file a complaint against therapists that against the organizations that license therapists in the U.S. You got a wackadoo out there who shouldn't be a therapist, who is pushing this nonsense. That guide will help you file the complaint against them, which could help other people. Congratulations to Sharks30 on an excellent video. That's the second time I've had him on here. Both times he's knocked it right out of the park. The link to his full video, which is about a half hour long, is in the description. Check it out if you've never seen the guy before. He's quite good. Well, Donald Trump is on his Twitter knockoff, which he is now tied financially to. If you had to picture what the worst thing he could retruth, aka retweeting, like the Kirkland brand retweeting, worst thing, what do you imagine it would be? Would it be, I don't know, a series of codes that he knew when he was in the White House? I mean, he wouldn't memorize anything, but would it be that? Some national security stuff? Would it be a conspiracy theory? Yeah, it's a conspiracy theory from Q. He retweeted this little piece of nonsense. Together we are unstoppable. All right, let's look at some of the imagery there. Oh, is that a giant Q in the sky behind him? If and when he is called on this, he is going to say he didn't know that was there. He didn't notice. Just didn't notice. And if he's pressed on it, he'll say, I hear a lot of good things about Q. I hear good things. From what I hear, he just doesn't like pedophiles. So I don't see what's wrong with that. That's what he's going to say. But he knows, and if you don't frequently get sold bridges in Brooklyn, you know that is a lie. Guy knows exactly what he's doing. He's playing to the QAnon base. He's playing to the base that is most likely to be taking action in a terrorist sense, most likely to respond to those calls. I want you to bear in mind this is the same guy that ran cover for Mike Flynn, basically has been trying to install Mike Flynn as America's new general. I believe that was his plan on January 6th. He seemed to be awfully cozy with Flint, and at a pro-Q event, he was called America's general. We should be nervous about this. This is what happens when somebody believes the criminal justice system does not apply to them. They do whatever they can to achieve their own goals. At least when somebody of his quality doesn't believe the criminal justice system applies to them. That is the former president retweeting propaganda for a conspiracy theorist that has sucked millions of Americans down a disturbing rabbit hole. Awful. There is some good news on that same platform. Just a couple of hours later, he tweeted this. I found John Bolton to be one of the dumbest people in government. But, this is a guy he hired. But, I am proud to say I used him well. Just to be clear, John Bolton is a psychopath that even people on the right didn't want anything to do with after his involvement with the Iraq War. Trump didn't want anything to do with him at first because of his mustache. I wish I were making this up. Not so. Because of his mustache. He got over it, though, and did hire Bolton. A total and unhinged warmonger. Yes, that's accurate. The red-faced boiler ready to explode was one of the... Who's he quoting? Whatever. Was one of those very stupid voices... What? That got us into the Middle East quicksand. I mean, I agree with the sentiment, but the wording is so dumb. 7, and also, if we're talking about responsibility, Colin Powell, George W. Bush. Those two. $7 trillion and millions of deaths later. Millions? Nothing. What does he mean, nothing? I don't know. The good news is that I won big negotiations with this moron by my side. Wow. When I brought him into a room with hostile foreign leaders, they thought I was going to war. Conceded all. Just out of curiosity, I do wonder how our allies felt when he walked into the room. How did our allies feel when this guy, known for his warmongering, known for being frankly unstable, when this guy that Trump now concedes was what's his words? A total and unhinged warmonger. How did our allies feel when we showed up with that cat? Probably not real confident that the U.S. was a reliable ally, huh? Probably not real confident that we were serious about anything. It's a hell of a lot easier not to go to war than it is to go to war. I know you know this. I'm stating this for the former president, who seems shocked that he managed not to start a new one. Okay, you know what? I'll give him that. So am I. He might have stumbled into one on accident, but I'll tell you, having John Bolton on the team did nothing to prevent war. The only thing it did was make us look like fools that are incapable of governing a country and cannot be trusted with anything approaching long-term responsibility. Right now, we look like a country that is bipolar. In fact, we look like what we are, a country that is bipolar. Half the time, we are reasonable, if corrupt. Those are our Democrats who are in the pockets of corporations, but at least have an interest in the country flourishing. The other half of the time, what do we have? We got George W. Bush starting 2 decades worth of war, lying to the United Nations about the cause of that war. We've got Donald Trump, who is a joke around the world. He's a laughingstock, and he's made us a laughingstock. I don't hear people talking about America as the leader of the world in anything anymore. As in, like, the country people look to follow, to take direction from. I don't think it was necessarily our place to begin with, but it's worthy of note how much that culture has shifted after Donald Trump. Because why would they? At most, they can rely on us for 8 years at a time. At the absolute most. But because of this guy, arguably in part because of Bush, but mostly because of the last clown, not the case anymore. What can you do about it? Well, first of all, do not fall into the same trap that we have for so long. Those are our last 5 Republican presidents, every single one of them committed a crime while in office that is worthy of prison time. If you're a fan of the show, you might be able to rattle this off without the cliff notes right now. Let's see if you can. The Chenault affair. Nixon. I'm not even talking about Watergate. Watergate should have been resulted in prison time, sure. Let's just skip it. Chenault affair. Ronald Reagan. Real quick, the Chenault affair is when he sabotaged negotiations for peace that Lyndon Johnson was holding in order to make it easier for Nixon to run for office. And then, after he got into office, didn't pick those negotiations up in any way that mattered because we stayed in war for years after. Ronald Reagan and his vice president, George H.W. Bush, participated in the Iran-Contra affair. It was an arms deal so that they could overthrow or help a bunch of terrorists, the Contras, overthrow a socialist government in Nicaragua. George H.W. Bush lied about the cause of the motivation for the Iraq War, the inciting issue, the weapons of mass destruction. He had intelligence telling him the opposite of what he had Colin Powell tell Congress, which is that there was evidence of mass destruction. He had intelligence specifically saying, no, there was not. Donald Trump, so many crimes, it would kill the algorithm to list them all. Suffice it to say, quite enough. What can you do? Start a state investigation. Start on that end, work through all of his crimes, and then go to the next folks on the list. Let's start with state investigations. Thing number 1, only thing we should concentrate on now. State investigations. If you live in one of these 5 states, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin, right now, you could write your attorney general and make a real case for them opening a state investigation. What are those 2 green check marks? Georgia, there is a state-level investigation in the form of District Attorney Fani Willis looking into Trump's election tampering there. And the Attorney General in Michigan, Dana Nessel, has launched a state investigation. This can run at the same time as the federal investigation. There's no reason for it not to, as a matter of fact. There's an excuse not to. There's an excuse that is given. And that would be that they don't want to step on the toes of federal investigators. Well, just to show you that it's possible, Dana Nessel in Michigan isn't stepping on toes of federal investigators. She simply pointed out that we're in 2023 now. So much time has passed since Trump attempted a coup d'etat. Soak that in. Trump attempted a coup, and so much time has passed that his co-conspirators were allowed to run for office again. Trump was allowed to announce that he's running for office again. So much time has passed that traitors are in office because of it. The lieutenant governor of Georgia is thought to be involved in the fake electors plot. If you're not familiar, those are all swing states up there. Those all went for Biden. Trump contacted them through Rudy Giuliani in an attempt to make them submit false electors. The goal of that, when a state selects a president, the way they announce that is by sending a signed document by a group of the state's electors to Washington. The goal of that, submitting false electors, was to create confusion, enough confusion, that the matter would be sent to a court where Trump hoped a judge favorable to him would call it, or that it would be sent to Congress, in which case he hoped people favorable to him would, etc., etc. Get a state investigation open into this mother effer. There's a number of reasons why, including the fact that relying solely on the federal investigation is likely to mean they miss a lot of people that were involved at the state level. And if you're in one of those states, let me tell you, you do not want anybody who was involved in the false elector plot to be let go, because they are traitors and they will work against democracy. They will continue to. So, contact your AG, link in the description. There's a script if you would like it. It boils down to simply saying, Attorney General, it's your job to protect my vote. It's been 2 years and you haven't. I expect to see you do it. Dana Nessel in Michigan cited having to answer to her constituents as part of her reasoning for why she reopened the state investigation into the false electors plot. Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, all of those are Democrats, the attorney generals. Give them pressure from their constituents. Doesn't take as many as you think. Well, that's a nightmare. Let me switch that up. Douglas Connor is glad to have stumbled upon this channel. Douglas, we're glad to have you. Thank you very much. And you're here at a great moment because Beau of the Fifth Column recently discussed what to do between leftists and liberals. What to do about the GOP's incoming onslaught for Social Security. If you are unaware, if you've been living in blessed ignorance of this fact, it seems to be the plan of the new Republicans here to go after Social Security. They've been trying their damnedest to chip away at it for years. Now they're getting serious. Let's listen to Beau. I'm going to jump in.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Beau again. So today we are going to talk about what to do when the Republicans inevitably come for Social Security. They're going to want to do something. Cut it, raise the age. They're going to want to make changes because it's a years-long process for them to just chip away at it.
Real quick, I do want to just point out, to give you a sense of what he's talking about, when questioned about this, one Republican representative said, well, people are telling me they want to work, and if they want to work, why not give them an incentive? Give them an incentive, as in motivation, when they're already saying they want something. Does that sound like nonsense? It's because it is. They are not interested in their constituents' well-being. They are interested in bleeding the government for money. And when they bleed the government for money, they're bleeding you for money. It's the Republican way.
When that occurs, liberals and the left have to be unified. The problem is, because of phrasing and motivations, people are going to want to argue. Leftists will be upset with liberals, and if you haven't seen it, we have videos on the difference between liberals and leftists. Leftists are going to be upset with liberals, not for what they want to do, but why they want to do it. We've talked about the left's habit of saying, no, you're wrong. This is the right take.
It's true. We got to work on how we come off, generally speaking.
This is one of those moments where improv rules apply. You don't say no, but you say yes and. The instinctive reaction for a liberal is going to be, this is not welfare. We paid for this. This is our money. We're entitled to it. Give it back.
I mean, it is true, though.
This is where the leftist is going to come out of the woodwork and be like, don't say that. And they're going to talk about how everybody deserves a decent life, and they're going to go all ideological and get utopian on you, and you're going to lose it, right? Why are they doing that? Because the leftist doesn't want you to become conditioned to see a difference between welfare and something that was earned. Because it's a very short step from that to, well, it's okay to get rid of welfare programs, stuff that wasn't earned. When the reality is everybody deserves a decent life. Everybody deserves the ability to get by, whether they worked for 65 years or not.
True. I mean, he's saying this is what the leftists will say. I'm a leftist, man. True. But he's getting to the point. What is it about the messaging we have to worry about? What is it, more importantly, that we have to not get lost in the weeds about? Here it comes.
Everybody's entitled to that. And it's worth remembering that not everybody on Social Security worked their entire life and then started collecting it. Social Security is used for other stuff. So that's what the leftist is trying to get across. They don't want you to become indoctrinated by a Republican talking point that starts to differentiate between the types of social safety nets. They want you on board with the idea that everybody deserves a decent life.
But
for leftists, say it like that, please.
There you go.
Don't start with an attack. Say yes, and everybody, regardless of situation, is entitled to a decent life.
Boom.
Now, when you run into those people who talk about the Constitution, please remember it is a goal of the Constitution to promote the general welfare. And this definitely falls into this. It seems an almost certainty that the Republican Party is going to come for Social Security. This is a moment where liberals and leftists, you have to work together.
Completely accurate. Just like with all videos that we share here, the link is in the description. What's the major takeaway? If you're a leftist, to the point where when you hear liberal, you don't think a left-winger, you think centrist. If that's you, I would agree with what Beau just said. Yes, and the talking points you're going to hear from liberals that you feel doesn't go far enough. If you're a liberal and you're trying to make nice with the leftists, the people that call themselves progressives, or even democratic socialists, you're trying to make nice with them, and they keep coming at you with the farthest left stuff you've ever heard, and you're like, yeah, well, we're talking about this right now. Just focus on what you agree on, because the important thing is that we have to be unified. This we agree on. Social Security should not be messed with. It should be expanded, if anything, not shrunken in any way, not made something that needs to be voted on to be renewed constantly, not have the age where Americans are able to access it raised. Nothing that shrinks it, which is the goal of Republicans. It's one of the few things people like about government, which makes it a target for the GOP, whose strategy is to say government doesn't work, so let's defund it. When they say defund it, they mean give tax breaks to the rich. It's just like when they say they want to do their own stimulus package. Their version of stimulus is giving tax breaks to the rich. Everything they're doing is only to give money to rich people. That's all they do. So they're going to come for Social Security when that happens, which, by the way, is now. They're coming for it now. Be prepared to be allies with each other. Centrists, leftists, anything on the spectrum in between. Right-wingers who are wanting to hold on to their Social Security. Be friends in this. If you do disagree with somebody on small parts, as Beau says, I agree. Yes, and we should protect Social Security because this is welfare we all need. Yes, and I don't even consider this welfare. But yes, we should protect Social Security. Easy as that. Hands off my money. I paid into it and it's mine, says Real Bill P. Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. It is yours. You earned it. In fact, as an American who has been around long enough to get Social Security, I feel you earned that and more. But yes, you are 100% entitled to Social Security. Do not let the GOP take it. They're going to try. If you want to know what you can do, I'll tell you right now. There's a link in the description to contact your representative. Everyone is responsible for their representative. You're not responsible for the whole country. You're responsible for the person in your district. They're supposed to be your voice in Washington. It would behoove us all now to get momentum going. Because one great thing about having Republicans as the bad guy is they get scared very easily. They don't like a big fight. So if our chests puff out now they're more likely to shrink away and just say it's not worth it because we're going to lose. How do we puff our chests out? We get our representatives talking. We get them making public statements. There's a chance your representative's purple. And maybe they've been swayed, or they're being swayed right now to not speak out against this issue, to not come down firmly on one side or the other. Maybe they think they can get away with simply not voting that day, or this or that or whatever. Nip that in the bud. Make sure they understand this is an issue you care about. Push them through a simple email or a phone call. The contact link is in there. You can find who your representative is. You Google them, you get to their contact page, you email them or call them. Contact them and make sure they know you want them speaking out on behalf of Social Security. You want it not touched. Get them out good and early. 2023, that means they're preparing what they're going to campaign on in 2024. Tell them. You tell them what their constituents care about. A district ain't that big. Your voice will mean a lot to them. Yeah, they're in Washington, but the only people that vote for them live near you. Take advantage of that. Well, I got fired up anyway. Expecting some news later today. I'm in wait and see mode right now. But I'll tell you, I did enjoy talking to you on this Friday morning. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. I'm your old pal Jake, and I'll see you next time. Surprise! Got a question that was so good I had to jump back in. Right-wing retcon says, should we be friends with right-wing populists? Or is that who we are resisting? The question to both is yes. Yes. In fact, as I'm speaking now, I'm realizing I might have to do an entirely separate video on this. But if it's good enough to make me pause the outro, wherein upon I generally chug a root beer, it's likely it's going to get a quick talk. Yes, we are resisting those people, right-wing populists. And yes, that is who we should be befriending. Not contradictory. Those are the people who are reachable on the right wing. Those are also the people who have been duped on the right wing. Those are the people who recognize the problems in America. The rich get richer. A shadowy group of people seem to control everything, except it's not shadowy, it's right out in the open. They cloak themselves in boringness, not anonymity. They recognize that the labor they put in is not coming back to them in the correct proportion. And instead of going after the actual causes of this, Fox News tells them it's the fault of trans people. Fox News tells them that immigrants are the reason why. So the answer to your question is we are going to have to resist and convert at the same time. People who are right-wing populists that are behind the podium, in other words, that is public enemy number one, because they are grifters. The right-wing populists in the crowd listening to that person speak at the podium, that is who we have to convert. If you want a very quick what you can do about it, there's a video which I will add to this upload in the description. But there's a video on my channel called the Unsubscribe Challenge. In short, it is where you challenge somebody who has just said some nonsense to you, who's a fan of Steven Crowder or something like that, to watch that video with you. You pull out your phone and you get ready to Google. They will watch a video that you choose as well. And whichever one of you, in terms of the timestamp, in terms of how far you get into the video, whichever one of you gets a fact check against them first, as in they can't pass a fact check, as in literally anything Steven Crowder says, so it should be easy, they have to unsubscribe for a week. Will that change their worldview overnight? No, certainly not. It will accomplish two things. Number one, it's a tiny hit. It's a nick against the algorithm of that person they watch. It's many things, but let's stick with the two things regarding the right winger themselves. Number one, it gives them a week of not having that crap in their feed, not having that poison in their brain. And it's further opportunity for them to develop some actual understanding of the world around them. Number two, it exposes them to content that's actually good for them. Presumably, if you're watching this channel, it's targeted specifically for a reason. If you're watching this channel, there's a good chance that the other content you're watching, such as Beau the Fifth Column, Shark 3.0, The Majority Report, that is healthy for them to hear. They get exposed to it. They get a little more familiar with it. They see it in a context which isn't just that content getting ripped on. And there's a sort of hidden third benefit, which is embarrassment, because they are going to lose the unsubscribe challenge. No way around it. They watch nothing but grifters. They cannot pass the unsubscribe challenge, or at least they're very unlikely to pass it. That embarrassment will go a very long way. Wonderful question. Perhaps, almost with certainty, because I'm fired up, there's another video to come out of this. I thank you, and I'll see you next time. Do a different song for the way out. Why not?
I've been up since like 3 a.m. I don't hear the hate, what y'all say ain't in. All I know is go, all I know is grind. I'm on your head, all I know is climb, just know I'm different. If I see the target, just know I'm gonna hit it. I don't know the fake, just know I live it. Anything I say, just know I'm in it. I know the ops and they lightweight. I'm in the zone and I might stay. Yeah, I'm on in the right way. Check the scoreboard, little